Hello, and well, this is Unit of the Week number 156, meaning we have been doing this for 3 bloody years. That's quite a lot of Unit of the Weeks that have been, well, reckoned. And we have went from artwork such as this to artwork such as this, so a huge improvement, I have to say. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching this for pretty much the past 3 or 4 years now. I've kind of been doing it a little bit longer than that. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of unit covered over 2 to 3 games, or 4 if you count that into Aggression 2. And well, without further ado, we're going to be doing something a little bit meta this week, and the unit is the game itself. So, let's get into it. The U-Team Systems, some of their previous games they're known for was the 2 active war games, Directed Action and High Treason, but they didn't really come into public limelight, I consider, till 2010 with the game Ruse, a World War II strategy game that was all about deceit and using fake units to commit fake attacks to try and deceive your opponent. Is a rather interesting mechanic. It was a pretty alright game with a rather enjoyable single player campaign, and the multiplayer could be quite fun too. It did end up getting a little bit spammy. I remember seeing huge Lancaster trains just committing bombing runs all over the bloody place. But 2 years later, they developed a real benchmark game, War Game European Escalation in 2012, which is the definitive, I'd say, Cold War tactical strategy game that's just focused on buying units and using units to fight against one another. It does a bloody good job, all 3 War Game games, of just showing off how Cold War warfare was like, which was a lot of ATGMs, crap tons of missiles all over the bloody place. And it's really the only strategy game that has done such a thing, especially with the amount of units available in the War Game series, and a lot of people hold that game, including me, dear to their hearts. Then they did the reboot of Active Aggression, which it was okay, but it's very similar to other strategy games. It didn't really have that pizzazz. And of course, in this year of 2017, they kind of went back to a tactical tactical strategy route and developed Steel Division Normandy 1944. In-game, Steel Division Normandy 1944 is a $40 game, available to really anyone who has a computer and so wishes to buy it. And it has 3 major components. For starters, you got the single player section of the game with a rather lackluster tutorial and 3 major campaigns, each one being a British campaign, a German campaign and an American campaign. The stories are pretty weak, but the missions themselves aren't too bad. Some of them are pretty generic, but you got some rather fun missions such as the Scottish Corridor and Panzer IV, where you have to set up and defend the supply line for a certain period of time, and depending on what units make through supply line are the units you get in the next battle. Overall, it's okay, but it's nothing really to write home about. I'd give it a 5 out of 7. And secondly, we got the meat and potatoes of the game, the multiplayer portion. You can play 1v1s all the way up to 10v10s if you really want to, with 2 main game modes, Conquest and Destruction. Really, you should just play Conquest. The game is much more balanced around that idea. You got quite a lot of maps to pick from, which are all rather fun, being a little bit flat, quite literally. And yeah, it can be fun when you get a multiplayer match. That's just kind of the problem, getting a multiplayer match, because the player base was initially such divided between quick play, ranked matches, 10v10 and custom lobbies. It was a real pain in the butt to actually get a match, and because of that, the player base has kind of dwindled down, which is a bit of a shame, because the multiplayer part of the game is rather good. And thirdly, you got the battle group creator. You got 18 different divisions to pick from, and even though there are less units in War Game and less type of divisions that you can make and options, there's still quite a lot of variety and tactical thinking when it comes to making your divisions, because each division is forced to go with a speciality. You usually have a very obvious weak point, but also very obvious strong point that you need to take advantage of and that you also need to guard. And even though there's not many units considering compared to War Game, there's still quite a lot of choices that you need to make that are very important. Overall, you can spend quite a bit of time in this, but maybe not as much compared to the War Game Armory, which I really wish they brought back to Steel Division. And if you take a look at its miscellaneous options, you've got the profile, which allows you to see your friends, replay stats, and change your name. Options, which, well, it's an options menu, and you can see who made the bloody game. The mod center, which isn't exactly used all too much. And then you got yourself the crew. In battle, Steel Division 1944 is actually a pretty good game. It's a rather fun game when it comes to tactical strategy games, as it brings something new to the table. It's a combined arms warfare game where you have to use combined arms if you want to win artillery, airplanes, support, tanks, infantry, recon, you name it. If you leave out one of those options, you're not going to be having a good time. It's very different compared to strategy games, even compared to the War Game series too. It's not like Men of War where you can just get a big heavy tank and call it a day and just on keeping the front line, have a good time. Or Company of Heroes where you could win matches by just buying a bunch of American GIs and giving them bazookas and M1919 machine guns. Instead, you have to be strategic. You have to be careful about where you play stuff. Big heavy tanks aren't going to save you in the end of the day when artillery comes crashing down on your face, as the game is very focused around suppression and overwhelming firepower warfare. You may not be able to penetrate or completely kill the enemy units, but if you can force them to fall back so your guys can move up without the fear of being shot at, that's very important. And with a lot of the maps being focused around bocage warfare, you can get some very good flanking opportunities and good defensive locations using those thick, long tree lines to your advantage. But the game does have one major problem, and that really is down to the player base, because you can have a bloody excellent game, but if there's no one to really play it with, you can't exactly play the game to begin with. And you can find matches, it takes a little bit of time. The major problem is actually finding a fair and balanced match that will give you a good fun match to talk about, a good fun match to play, unlike Company of Heroes, which actually has a proper matchmaking system where you get usually people at equal skill based. Here, well, right now you really have to pick luck of the draw with the Russian roulette of custom lobbies, where you're going to play against a pre-made, or you're pre-made yourself, who's going to pub stomp a bunch of noobs because there's no one else online, which really does suck. And that's really my major problem with Steel Division, is the game is brilliant. I love it. It's one of my favourite strategy games that I played because it does the combined arms warfare so well, and it really gets what World War II combat was about. It was about using everything together, and it wasn't just the biggest and best, it was all the small guys, the infantry or lighter tanks, that make a big difference. The phase system's lovely, the economy system, the division system are all rather big improvements compared to War Game. Even the infantry mechanics are much more fun now. But because of, I'd argue, lack of marketing, the lack of really communication and with updates, especially initially, and because of how fractured the multiplayer community was over pretty much 4 different game modes, it got rather hard to get a match, and then the player base kind of dwindled down. Which is a shame, because that really kneecapped the game, and it's a game that I love quite dearly. Well, on a morbid note, I'm going to leave it off. Yeah, this has been another Rang Rouge Unit of the Week. Expect more of these in, well, the upcoming weeks. And as usual, please just take it easy.